For years, Savannah Guthrie stood at the center of American mornings, confident, warm, unshakable. The woman who could interview presidents, break down Supreme Court rulings, and still laugh with her co-hosts like she hadn't a single worry in the world. But there was something Savannah rarely talked about, something deeply personal, something that lived quietly behind every smile, behind every broadcast, behind every moment the cameras caught her looking just slightly distant. Her sister, Nancy Guthrie. Most people watching the Today Show every morning had no idea. They saw Savannah, the star, the anchor, the powerhouse. But very few people knew what Savannah carried privately, what her family had walked through, what kind of pain had quietly shaped the woman the entire country thought they knew. And then, after years of near silence, Savannah finally spoke. What she said stopped people cold. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a headline designed to shock. It was something far more powerful than that. It was the truth, raw, unfiltered, and completely unexpected. And once you hear it, you will never look at Savannah Guthrie the same way again. Every morning, across millions of American households, a ritual begins. Coffee is brewed, curtains are pulled open, and the television clicks on, almost always to the same familiar face, Savannah Guthrie. She has been the anchor of NBC's Today Show since 2012, and in that time she has become something rare in modern media, a trusted presence, not just a broadcaster, not just a personality, but someone viewers genuinely feel they know. She has interviewed sitting presidents and grieving families. She has reported from courtrooms and conflict zones. She has sat across from the most powerful and the most broken people in the world, and somehow always found the exact right words. She graduated from the University of Arizona, earned her law degree from Georgetown, and worked her way through local television markets before landing at NBC News. By the time she took her seat on the Today Show couch alongside Matt Lauer and then Hoda Kotb, she had already proven herself as one of the sharpest legal and political minds in broadcast journalism. But credentials don't explain the connection. What makes Savannah Guthrie matter to people isn't her resume. It's her realness. There's something about her, the way she laughs too loud sometimes, the way her eyes fill when a story moves her, the way she speaks to ordinary people like they are the most important person in the room. That makes you feel like she's not performing, she's just her. And that's exactly why when Savannah finally opened up about her sister Nancy Guthrie, the reaction was so powerful. Because suddenly, the woman America thought they knew showed them something they never expected to see, a depth of love, grief, and quiet resilience that changes everything. Savannah Lee Guthrie was born on December 27, 1971, in Melbourne, Australia, though her family moved back to the United States when she was still very young. She grew up primarily in Tucson, Arizona, the daughter of Charles Guthrie and Cecile Guthrie. Hers was a family shaped by warmth, faith, and the kind of values that get passed down quietly, not through lectures, but through example, through the way people treat each other when nobody is watching. She had siblings, a real family, a real home, and one of the constants in her life, from childhood all the way through adulthood, was her sister Nancy. But here's what most people never knew. Nancy Guthrie is not just Savannah's sister. She is also one of the most quietly influential voices on grief, faith, and loss in the entire country. Nancy is an author, a speaker, and a biblical teacher who built her entire life's work around something almost impossibly painful: the death of her own children. Nancy and her husband, David, lost their daughter Hope in 1999. Hope lived only 199 days. Born with a rare metabolic disorder called Zellweger syndrome, a condition that left her without a future from the very first breath she took. And then, shatteringly, it happened again. In 2002, Nancy and David lost their son Gabriel. He too was born with Zellweger syndrome. He too lived only 183 days. Two children, two losses, the kind of grief that most people cannot even imagine surviving, let alone transforming into something meaningful for the world. But Nancy Guthrie did exactly that. And Savannah, watching her sister carry this weight with her own eyes, was changed in ways she could never fully explain. Not then, maybe not for a long time. For Savannah, The path to the top of American television was never handed to her. She worked in local news markets, grinding through the kind of journalism that nobody glamorizes. Early mornings, small studios, stories that would never make national headlines, but still demanded everything she had. But she was good, remarkably good. Her legal background gave her something most television anchors simply don't have: a forensic understanding of complex systems, an ability to ask a precise question at exactly the right moment, and the discipline to truly listen to the answer. She joined NBC News in 2008, initially as a correspondent and legal analyst. Her coverage of the presidential election that year caught serious attention. Her breakdowns of major legal cases were clear, compelling, and deeply intelligent without ever feeling cold or distant. When she became co-anchor of the Today Show in 2012, it felt less like a promotion and more like an arrival, like watching someone finally step into the exact space they were always meant to fill. She brought something the morning television landscape hadn't quite seen before: a woman who was simultaneously razor-sharp and deeply human, someone who could pivot from a breaking political story to a conversation about motherhood without missing a single emotional beat. The audience responded. Ratings climbed. Recognition followed. But what was happening off-camera during all of this? What was quietly unfolding inside her? Family was something Savannah kept very close. She was watching her sister Nancy step fully into her calling. As Nancy's books reached bestseller lists, as her speaking ministry expanded, as people across the country and around the world found real comfort in Nancy's story of impossible loss, Savannah watched all of it with a kind of quiet awe, the kind of awe that eventually demands to be spoken out loud. But not yet. Not for a long time. Fame always extracts a price. And for Savannah Guthrie, the bill arrived in ways she never fully anticipated. In 2017, the Today Show was shaken to its foundation by the firing of Matt Lauer, Savannah's co-anchor, her colleague, someone she had sat beside every single morning for years. The allegations against him were serious and deeply disturbing, and it fell to Savannah, live on air, in real time, to announce it to the country. Few moments in the history of morning television have been that raw. She sat at the anchor desk and told millions of viewers that her co-anchor had been fired following a complaint of inappropriate sexual behavior. Her voice broke. Her composure cracked in ways you could clearly see, even as she fought hard to hold herself together. "I'm still processing all of this," she said. Live, in front of the entire nation, she was not performing grief. She was experiencing it, publicly, messily, completely honestly. Critics watched closely in the weeks that followed. Some questioned her responses. Others turned their scrutiny toward the entire culture of the show. It was a bruising season, professionally and personally, for Savannah and for everyone around her. And then came something far more intimate. Beginning in 2016, Savannah started experiencing frightening vision problems that would eventually lead to a retinal detachment, a medical emergency that put her sight genuinely at risk. She underwent multiple surgeries. There were real, terrifying stretches of time when nobody could say with certainty whether she would recover her vision fully. She spoke about it later with the same directness she brings to everything. She had been scared, more scared than she had let on publicly, more scared than the composed version of herself she showed the cameras ever revealed. But she came back. She always came back. And perhaps that particular refusal to be permanently undone, that deep, stubborn resilience, came at least in part from years of watching her sister Nancy, because Nancy had survived things that made almost every other fear feel, by comparison, manageable. In 2014, Savannah Guthrie married Michael Feldman, a political consultant, and the two have built what appears to be a genuinely grounded and loving life together. They have 2 children, Vale and Charlie, and Savannah has been remarkably open about the way becoming a mother recalibrated her entirely, shifted her priorities, rearranged what she thought she understood about herself. She talks about her children with a very particular kind of tenderness, not the polished, brand-managed tenderness of celebrity parenting culture, but something more honest, more unguarded, like she isn't telling you what a good mother sounds like. She's just telling you the truth. She has spoken openly about the fear of not being enough, of pouring so much into a career that demands everything, and quietly wondering what is left for the people who matter most when the cameras finally go dark. She has also spoken about her Christian faith, not loudly, not as performance, but with a quiet and genuine conviction. That has clearly deepened over the years, and a significant part of that deepening came directly from her sister. Because when you watch someone you love lose to children, to babies, and then watch that same person choose faith over bitterness, choose purpose over paralysis, choose to show up for strangers in their grief when her own grief was still so fresh, it does something permanent to you. It makes the small frustrations feel smaller. It makes the real things feel almost unbearably precious. Savannah has said in interviews that Nancy is one of the strongest people she has ever known in her life. Not strong in the way our culture usually means it, not invulnerable, not untouchable. Strong in the way that actually matters. Present, open, faithful, willing to let grief do its full, honest work without running from a single moment of it. That kind of strength doesn't just impress the people around it. It reshapes them. Savannah Guthrie is in her early 50s now, and there's something different about her in this season of her life, something quieter and more settled beneath the familiar warmth that viewers have always loved. She has been doing this for well over a decade. She has sat in that anchor chair through presidential elections, through a global pandemic, through national tragedies and rare moments of genuine collective triumph. She has watched the country fracture and argue and slowly, painfully try to find its way back to itself. And she has watched her own life move through seasons that no amount of preparation could have fully readied her for. Her children are growing. Her career continues to evolve. And her understanding of what all of this is actually for, what the platform means, what the trust of millions of viewers actually requires, has shifted in ways that are visible now. If you know how to look for them, she speaks differently about purpose than she once did. She speaks differently about legacy. And increasingly, when she talks about her faith, about her family, about the experiences that have shaped her most fundamentally, her sister Nancy is never far from the center of it, because Nancy's life has been a living, breathing lesson in something Savannah has clearly been learning slowly, carefully for many years, that suffering can become meaning, that loss does not have to be the final sentence of any story, that the people who walk through the very darkest things and still choose love when they come out the other side are the ones who quietly teach the rest of us how to be human. So what exactly did Savannah Guthrie finally say? What was the truth that stopped people? It wasn't a confession pulled from a tabloid. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't the kind of dramatic revelation that exists only to generate clicks and quickly disappear. It was something quieter, and because of that, something far more lasting. Savannah publicly and fully acknowledged the profound, irreplaceable impact her sister Nancy has had on her life, on her faith, on her perspective, on her approach to grief and joy and everything that lives in between those two extremes. She spoke openly about Nancy's losses, about Hope and Gabriel, about what it meant to stand close to that level of sorrow and watch someone she loved carry it with such extraordinary grace. She spoke about how Nancy's ministry, her books, her speaking, her willingness to transform the most private possible pain into something that comforted complete strangers had fundamentally changed how Savannah understands her own platform, what she owes to the people watching every morning. What the responsibility of being trusted by millions of people actually means, she said, in words that quietly stayed with everyone who heard them, that her sister showed her what it looks like to be faithful when faith costs you absolutely everything. And the reason it landed so hard wasn't that it was surprising in a dramatic sense. It landed because it was so completely, disarmingly real. In a media world built on carefully managed images, on publicists and consultants and talking points engineered to protect, here was one of the most recognizable women in American broadcasting, saying something entirely unguarded. My sister lost to babies. She chose faith anyway. She chose love anyway. And she made me better. That kind of honesty cannot be manufactured. It comes from a place that most cameras are never allowed anywhere near. There's a version of Savannah Guthrie's story that looks like ambition. Perfectly rewarded, the girl from Tucson who worked hard, climbed steadily, and earned her seat at one of the most watched tables in American television history. And that story is true, but it is not the whole story. The whole story includes a sister who sat in a hospital room holding a baby she already knew she was going to lose, and then, years later, did it again, and who somehow, through grief so crushing it could have permanently destroyed a lesser person, found a way to help millions of complete strangers feel less alone inside their own pain. The whole story includes a famous woman who watched all of this from close range, quietly and permanently changed by every single moment of it. Because that is how life actually works, isn't it? We don't become who we are because of the stages we stand on or the titles we accumulate or the number of people who recognize our face. We become who we are because of the people who love us enough to be completely honest in front of us. The ones who don't perform strength, who actually live it day after day, when living it costs them something real. The ones who grieve without shame and hope without pretending and show up fully even when showing up is the hardest possible thing. Nancy Guthrie never chased fame. She chased meaning, and in doing so, she gave her sister, and now, through her sister's voice, all of us, something far more valuable than any award or recognition could ever offer, a way of seeing, a different set of eyes for looking at what actually matters. Savannah Guthrie sits at that anchor desk every morning carrying more than most of the people watching her will ever fully know. She carries her children's laughter. She carries her husband's steadiness. She carries the memory of every story she has told and every face she has sat across from. And she carries her sister's faithfulness. Quietly, gratefully, in ways that show, if you know how to look, that's the truth. That moved everyone who heard it, not because it was dark, but because it was light.